I know him. I just didn't know he. I didn't know.
Victor also passed away. Victor Jones.
What?
Victor Jones passed away last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's too bad.
I know Jack Connor told me he was out of secretary. Victor passed away. Yeah, that's what I called to tell you.
Sad.
Yeah. You know that thing when all the cars lined up and they went past Dave's house and went out there.
Dave who?
Foster, the guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I only had 2 responses.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I,
Well, he's isolated enough to where.
why isn't it signed?
Come again?
Why isn't it signed? Like, did someone? Oh, it's on the back.
Yeah.
No, I do not object. The one that says I object.
Who is
Yes,
that?
that's Gary Barnett. It
Oh,
says,
with his tragic wood yard. That's why I couldn't figure out why he put on the end as residential, because is a business lot.
I don't know about that. You'd have to look at the
So it's 1 and 1?
Yeah.
I forgot to call people today. Oh,
I know I talked to you about it, but.
no. No, I know Cheryl's coming.
Rick should, because we talked about it at times.
Okay. That's good. And I sent out,
This thing this morning. This thing this morning, so that.
Yeah.
Well, you're
I
not-
keep forgetting
You're
that.
not gonna.
Yeah, if I'm not their babysitter, then we can't have a meeting.
I have somebody that I express an accountability to, so I have to take them up. I know my grandson, he was coming to visit his office. We're getting into adult. So Raymond has on his ear.
Today it's beautiful.
Man, the wind.
Oh, it's chilly every morning.
It was chilly yesterday. Wasn't
It's just, the wind's just not.
John Ellis was wondering if I know he's your favorite. Oh, this guy bought up all this property on Clover Street. Okay. Yeah, he's really wants
Mr. Phillips,
He was just.
What's up, young man?
rent, taxes, and insurance.
Yep,
Not necessarily in that order.
and lumber.
Yeah. Ooh, good. And eggs. Once you're caught, we're saved.
Sweet.
We still got 5 minutes.
Hi, Cheryl.
I love it.
Yeah, let your back so we can all see it.
It's great.
And it's on your shirt and not show it off, you know.
Okay, Cheryl, don't be too confused. You have your packet, which has the minutes in it. I've stuck a copy of the minutes that we'll sign, so I can put those in my book. So you don't have to rip the page off again with your signature on it. But we gotta pass them first.
We could do that, change, we could do that, change. Commercials, that law.
I don't know, to be honest. That sounds like a Ken question.
Yeah. I think so.
Bless you.
See, I knew Coach would be here. It's a big one. Not really.
How's your mom doing, Cheryl? Is she getting out any? Yeah, on good days. On good days.
I'm ready.
It's 4:59.
She's ready for some ice cream.
You're always ready for ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good. Yes, yes, we do. Yeah, she's Carly's. They're together.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll take roll call.
Sorry about that, I have my last pack. Chuck Warfield. Nope. Alice Roderick. Cheryl Johnson.
Present.
Mike Wynn.
Present.
And Richard Phillips.
Does anyone have any opening remarks? Moving forward, are we in compliance with the Nevada open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
At this time, we'll take public comment related to the items on the agenda below. In consideration of others who may also wish to provide public comment, please avoid repetition and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? Is there anything online? Is there anything online? Okay, moving forward, items for discussion or possible action. Approve or deny meeting minutes for February 2nd, 2022. At this time, we'll take a motion.
I would like to make the motion to approve the minutes for 2/2/22.
I'll second it. I had to read through it since we haven't had a meeting for a while, but
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, approve or deny recommendation to the City Council of Carl East's request for a conditional use permit to run a 4-space mobile food and craft court business at 110 Second Street. Do we have anyone here to speak to this?
No.
So, do we know who it was that
I do. I know.
did the negative requesting not to do it?
Oh, I know who that is, yeah.
I do too.
There's no names.
Yeah, but I can't really say it.
Can we count it if it's unsigned?
They don't have to be signed, do they, those notes? Mm-mm.
So we have 2 responses, one with a positive, I do not object, and one with a negative, they do object due to parking, noise, and traffic.
Yeah. My question is, are we changing the zoning for that so they can have commercial there?
No, it's just a conditional use permit.
And I have a hard time saying we're giving it to there where we have community, they have property on the main part of, that's already commercial. If you look at their map, you round the corner like you're going to Family Dollar, and then you take a right. And the front of their property, which is on the main drag, is just left for weeds or whatever.
Yeah, but they do not have access to the highway. There's,
But they don't have access to where they are anyway, where it's drawn here either, do they?
just off of the First Street.
Yeah, just off the First Street where you come into the private owner's driveway.
Yeah.
And then the way it's drawn to me, I'm looking at the drawing, the way it's drawn to me, they're gonna exit right out where the Family Dollar store exits or enters there. Is that what it looks like to you?
That's what it looks like to me.
And to me, that's a mess there already. I just saw a truck when I came over here to the meeting, leave the dollar store, waited for another car to come, and the truck didn't have time to turn and square up, so they just ran across the road. So I had to wait for him to get on the highway. And I'm just saying, this just looks like more of a mess to me.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
I know you won't, but that's the way I look at it. Why can't they put the trailers on the commercial side and then have their entrance right where it is and they can come out the same way, which wouldn't cause a problem?
But that is the state highway. You have to get permission from the state to come, number one, put a driveway in through that existing curb.
Well, they could use their private one, what they're showing here right now, and take it right to the trucks in front.
But it's already there. I tried my best to talk that guy out of this. I told him, you know, I think you're wasting your time, but that's not my decision. That's why we have this $5 board here.
But I just think, personally, I just think it's gonna cause a lot of problems, where the Family Dollar store was I always thought it was messed up the way it was set up too. But that's just me personally.
And that's one of the reasons that the Family Dollar did not have access to the highway. They had to come off of First Street.
Because of the state highway?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question. Do you know if they're going to be removing fencing?
They're doing what?
Are they going to be removing the fencing?
I was
other
not
words,
aware he
there's-
was removing the fence.
Well, there's fencing along the highway and then all along First Street, with the exception of the opening where they drive in. Will that be removed?
It's his property. If he wants to take the fence down, that's up to him. But he cannot access the highway there.
Do we know if he plans on leaving the units there during the week
If,
or only on the 3
yeah, the
days? he's
conditional
talking?
use permit says just that area only. And he wants just permission for the weekends. Now, whether he wants to put them there or not, I don't know. You know, if he wants to just leave them there, I think that's kind of foolish. If it was my stuff, I wouldn't want it there, but
Because I almost feel like if the fence is down, do you have to use that driveway? Or can you just park along the street, which wouldn't necessarily make it a traffic
There is
issue?
street parking there.
Right, that's what I mean, it wouldn't necessarily make an issue.
And if the customers, if he has any, can cross that property and get to where he wants to put the,
Because
whatever, yeah,
if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that the only people that are actually going to be coming in and parking in here would be the vendors, right? And then the other people that would be using the vendor services, they would be along the street? Is that what your understanding is? Or it didn't
That's
really
the way I
say?
read it.
Because we don't know if this is a drive-through area, so I can drive around, pick up what I want, and then go back out and go on my way, or do you have to
There's only
park?
one driveway there.
But it looks like a big
But
circle.
it looks like a big, like a half a circle, like MacArthur Drive, that you
Well,
can drive
there's
around.
enough room there that if he wants to do that, he can. But you gotta remember, this is private property. Once he gets on, if we give him a conditional use permit, we can put stipulations on it, how we want it to work. Am I right, Franklin?
So I heard it is private property, you're right about that, I guess I don't know what the rest of that statement is gonna be.
So can we make a condition or a stipulation that only the vendors park on the property and that other people don't? So there's not traffic going in and around in that circle, only, a couple times a weekend? Or,
The question at that point is enforcement, right? Like, what do we want to enforce that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The question at that point is enforcement, I mean, I guess I don't understand what the concern about parking is. I mean, is Second Street right there particularly busy?
Yeah, it's crazy busy because the Family Dollar exit is right across the way of this. Coming in and people are exiting Family Dollar at the same time.
And if you're unloading the truck at the same time.
And then, so now we're gonna add to it across the street. My guess is they'll probably park there. But that's kind of Family Dollar's, if they're parking on private property and they don't want them there.
I would like to note that the one person that did sign, that was from Family Dollar.
That was Family Dollar, does not object.
Just wanting to throw that out there.
Well, if you're a business, it might help them if, I just came out of the Family Dollar store, so I'm gonna walk over across the street and get something to eat too. So you can look at that point too, but.
I think there's some questions on what this roundabout and like how he's setting it up, but, and I know that corner is a tough corner as you're coming in and out, but you do have the choice to go down and come around and go in as well if it bottlenecks. I mean, it would be nice to kind of have options.
I think the property itself lends itself to the conditional use permit. I mean, it is right on the main drag.
If he only wants to do it on the weekends, I don't think he's gonna have much business anyway. But it's not this board's position to say, it's his money. If he wants to try it. I mean, that's you guys' call.
Would anyone care to make a motion regarding this issue?
I think we need more information before we can make a decision, because I don't think I have enough here, because that looks like a drive-through for me, even though it's not supposed to be. If that's the case, I think it's gonna be more congested. And I'm really concerned, how come we're not using the front part of it instead of a residential area to put places in where you could use the main drag and still park on the side like you're talking about and everything else, and it'd be more visible for people to see instead of hide back in the corner. But I just think we need more information. I'm just gonna.
We should seriously consider the individuals not here, in my opinion. If he was really serious about this, he'd be here.
And that,
That may have been on me. I've been crazy busy with trying to get our pre-construction conference going and things like that. I mean, I told them it would be a good idea, but as I didn't call anybody today to remind them about the meeting, so I can't completely blame them.
But it's not your job to remind them about the meeting.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out
I know
there.
you do that because you're a nice person, but
Is there a way that we could table this until he could, like, for next time and give him the opportunity, if so, to maybe explain some of this? Because, I mean, I feel that it's beneficial to have maybe that option for, I mean, we want new and innovative, but,
Well, that's true, but considering he's also, this will also go before the council.
oh, okay.
Do you understand? I mean, I can call them and say, you really need to be on
Okay.
Zoom tomorrow night for the council because there are questions. So could they, as a committee, ask those questions? And like say, you know, council, this is what we were concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy's here. He'll
Yeah.
take care of that tomorrow. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a recommendation to the city
Yeah.
council.
I just don't know how it lies with, I mean, he's one way, I kind of have one, how this falls here
Yeah.
for a board, you know.
My questions would be is number one, is the fence going to be maintained up, or is that going to go down? If we can have him rope off the access to only the vendors, just say vendor parking on this loop, and then the parking on the street, I think, to me, that would be a positive. If we're having people trying to drive in and go in and out of that driveway, that would be my concern.
Because if the street too bad, it's hard enough, like when there's cars along the street, to see another car coming out.
So at this point, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Mr. Rao?
Wouldn't it be better to have the parking on the private property rather than on the street there? If they make it, they knock the curb out and have an exit and a egress for each of those, where that circle comes out on each place. That seems to be.
Wouldn't you think that that exit, where they're showing the exit, especially towards the front of the property, that would be, to me, the danger zone of somebody pulling out at the same time as Family Dollar's going in?
Unless that's an entrance only, as you come in, you make a right in, or you make a left into one.
Like the post office.
And then it's one way.
They're not gonna have car after car after
No.
car at either place. And there's, before you enter a road, there's an automatic law that you stop. So if there's a car coming from each way, they've got to stop for the other car. I think parking on the property would be better than having it congested on the street.
And basically, that would be on him for any liability and insurance if a fender bender happens on the property.
Yes, if it's on the street, then no. Well, at this point, it doesn't look like anybody wants to make a motion.
Nope.
With, so can we table this, or do we have to just die lack of motion?
Yeah, it dies for lack of a motion.
Okay,
So how does that affect the council tomorrow?
Approve it, just because this is a recommendation at the end of the day, they could say we're gonna approve it tomorrow, but Tommy's here to discuss what conversations you had, or one or any of you can come and discuss why there was no motion to approve, I guess.
And for tabling that or making that motion to do that, I mean, for just the two concerns or two questions she has, would it be viable to let it fall for that? I mean,
Well, I mean, because it dies for lack of motion doesn't mean we can't put it back on the agenda.
Okay.
Depending on what the city council does tomorrow, they could just table it, or they could do whatever they want, and then someone can just reach out to them and say, listen, we just had some additional questions, we can put it back on the agenda for the 18th, And the planning commission will ask those questions and you can be there and then they'll make a decision that night, so.
Cause that, I don't mind having it there, I just don't like the plan that they have. I think it can be adjusted in a safer way for the community.
This is just my opinion. I think that the motion should be to table it, to get questions answered.
That's what I'm saying, is that it doesn't have to be a motion, it just dies for lack of a motion, and then we can put it back on.
And I'd like to mention that the taco truck is out in front of that clock tower. There are many times that there's 4, 5, 6 cars out there. So there could be traffic, a little more so than you would think. Because usually it's 1 or 2, but there are certain times that it does have several.
And the time that they have, 7 to 5, is a pretty busy time at the Family Dollar.
Oh, I
and
thought it was
traffic-
noon to 5.
Here it says 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't it be awesome to have a breakfast truck? Anyway. So apparently this is going to die for lack of a motion.
Okay.
So moving forward, approve or deny language for possible amendments to Chapter 15 of the Caliente City Code regarding guest houses on single-family residential lots and the 2018 International Building Code, Appendix Q, tiny houses.
I sent you Franklin's amendment language.
I gave my suggestions.
And I emailed them to Franklin.
Okay. Just a couple spelling errors, or a spelling error.
Yeah, I saw that. There's the
Um,
R missing in 15166022.
And then possibly removing the first place under that third whereas.
Oh, yeah.
And then would it be to put it in numerical order?
No, because that 15270 is part of the definition section of the code. And so 15.270 by itself is just building, comma, accessory. So this one would be 15.270.01, which would be accessory building, parentheses, guest house. And that's where the rest of the definitions are. And then 15.1660 is
Just for our information at this point.
what?
The 15.166 is just for our,
No, because there are changes in 15.1660. So that 15.1660 is under the residential estates permitted uses. And so just to make things clear, and I found a couple typos in there as well, and that's why I changed to, it said third of a lot instead of an acre, which didn't make any sense to me. 4 wasn't numbered correctly, and then that should have been number 5. And then I added the language including 1 guest house as defined in point 15.20.01, which is going to be the additional definition that we add in there. 15.1710 is the permitted uses in the R1 zone, which is the single family residential. So I just add the same language into permitted uses in R1 zone subsection 4. I did not do the R3 zone because the R3 zone is the multi-family dwellings. And so I just left the language in there. So when you're talking about statutory construction, we talked about this a couple months ago is the statute was, or our code was pretty wide open. If it was allowed an accessory building, you technically could build it, right? But now that we're specifying that a guest house as defined in 15.270.01 is permitted in both an RE and an R1 zone, then since it's not specifically enumerated in the R3 zone or the I zone or the C zone or the other zones, it means it would be foreclosed in those zones to be built as an accessory guest house, if that makes sense. But if you wanted, we could go back and put that language in there. I just didn't see it necessary since we've already
Beat it to
specified in
death.
what zones it's allowed. What?
Because we've already beat it to death?
Well, no, it wouldn't be that hard to edit it. I just, because of statutory construction, we didn't really need to, I guess. But if we wanted to make it unequivocal, I guess clear in the reading of the code, then we could put it in there.
So I have a technical question. In making this ordinance, if somebody were to try to look this up, this situation up, it's not technically going to show up on the original ordinance, correct?
It's not going to show up on ordinance 179. What we would have to do is we just have to republish ordinance 179, an amended ordinance 179.
Okay.
And we just adopt amended ordinance 179 to include the new language. And we probably also wanted to add the new language that we adopted a couple months ago regarding the conditional use permit on commercial properties as well. So we'll probably do that anyway here in the next couple months.
Okay.
But I also wanted to see where we're going with this and whether or not the city council wanted to go forward with this as well. And then we have to go through the whole ordinance adoption process and things like that. And again, this is just so we've mixed the burdens of tiny homes and guest homes. This is just the zoning regulations for accessory buildings, guest homes. This has nothing to do with the building code regarding specification of tiny homes.
Okay, a question I have, would this be under construction like a normal home if you had a guest home? So you'd have to get all the building inspection stuff like you would a normal home, or like a tiny
Like
home?
any accessory building you build,
Okay.
a garage, a shed, you'd still have to go through the same building permit requirements, and it'd have to meet the same building code requirements for, I guess, a living structure. And I don't know what those are. I don't know the building code in and out. Ken does, I'm sure. But it would need to, if you're gonna have a bedroom, a bathroom, if it's gonna be a living quarter of some sort, it'll have to follow the building specifications for a living quarter, right?
The only thing I see in this that was not addressed was in R1 zoning and R3, both, we have space limitations on how many square feet of that property can you cover?
Yeah, it doesn't change any of that, right?
Yeah,
So
it doesn't change any of
it
that.
does, right, so if they already have an accessory building and putting a guest house like violates the terms or violates the code regarding percentage of lot used, they would have to take down their other accessory building, right? And then this amendment also limits the number of accessory building guest homes that could be built. So if they built the guest house, right, casita, whatever you want to call it, and they wanted to build another accessory building without violating the percentage, the square feet used, they could do that. It just couldn't be another guest home. We're just limiting it to one at this point. If we don't want to limit that, we can go out and edit that language, but I figured we don't want people putting 2 or 3 guest apartments on their lots as well, so.
So I have a question. Where did we come up with the third of an acre as opposed to a
The
quarter
third,
acre?
so the third of an acre, that was already there. So if it's in black, it's already part of the code. If it's red, it's being taken out. If it's blue, it's being added.
Okay, so the livestock, that's talking about livestock, never mind. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
that's permitted use on a residential estate in the city of Caliente, and that's already been adopted in the 2015 ordinance 179.
Have any thoughts? Anyone would like to make a motion?
No.
No.
Strictly the ability to
In
add
a way it
casinos.
does. It
Oh,
kinda
in no
does.
way does this address tiny homes. This does
Yeah.
not address tiny homes.
No,
Clear, unequivocally does not address building standards for tiny homes.
And I know that it's not gonna change, but I still am very concerned about, we add an extra addition home, because that's what it becomes, a home for somebody. But they don't have to pay water, sewer, they don't have to pay, garbage, which is going up tomorrow, 10% on each one. And I understand, the situation with that, but I still have a hard time saying, mine goes up because we don't have enough revenue for it. But this person living in that, all they have to do is pay the electricity.
So that's the thing, right, is these, the definition, right, under 15.270.01 is not to be used as a rented out apartment. So it's to be used by guests of the tenants. It can be used by the occupants of the main dwelling, and it also has domestic employees. And I just took that definition from the one we looked at from Las Vegas a couple of months. They are not, and this is important, this is the problem with the enforcement mechanism, is it's not supposed to be used as a rental property. If it's used as a rental property, that's in violation of the city of Caliente zoning ordinance, because if it's on an this is why I didn't put it on R3, if it's on R1, that's a single family residentially zoned area. If you're having someone rent a unit from you that's on the same lot, then technically that would violate the zoning ordinance because you'd be using that lot as a multi-family dwelling or multi-family lot, and that's not what it's zoned for. So it's used in cases where you have an elderly mother living with you, or if you have a guest that's staying for a couple nights or even a couple weeks, right? As long as they're guests and they're not permanent tenants. If you have a domestic servant, or if like someone lives with you to clean your house or take care of your kids, what do they call it?
Yeah,
Au
para,
pair.
yeah.
Technically, they could live there with you, right? But it is not to be used. Someone legally is not allowed to charge $500 a month to live there because then it would become a separate dwelling. But again, the question is enforcement. I mean, they have the same problem in Las Vegas, and I'm sure people do it all the time.
But
The
I'm
way you
sure that
enforce
Las
that-
Vegas has more income on, waters and everything else, so they don't have to keep raising their rates up as fast as we're raising ours. But that's just, like I says, this is an issue that,
Yeah,
it bothers me, but I understand where it's coming from. But, I'm concerned that everybody else gets penalized, but this person or whoever lives there actually gets a benefit.
If we were to designate that they have to have separate hookups, can we do that?
we could, yes.
And then you would lose your
No, I actually don't know.
enforcement, because that's your whole thing, is loss of revenue, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, so if we said you need to have a separate hookup for your power, water, sewer,
Because I don't know if we technically could charge them for another hookup, right? Because the lot, we got to think about what the lot is. The lot is zoned as a single family residential, and the accessory building is a building whose ancillary uses are for the main building, right? I mean, I guess technically you could. I don't know why you would. Um,
because then you would negate the enforcement issue.
yeah, but see, so this is the question, right? Is why do we want to enforce a guest house? So here's the question, right? If I were to add a bedroom with a full bathroom and a small kitchenette onto the main part of my house, like, would you charge me another hookup for that, right? The question is, what's the purpose of the guest house? And if the purpose is truly for an ancillary purpose, then we shouldn't be charging them for another hookup because it's part and parcel of the whole lot, right?
Are you afraid it won't be metered? Is that what you're concerned about? Is-
Me or?
Yeah,
No, I'm afraid that I pay $60 a month for garbage sewer, and this person living in the tiny, or not tiny house, but lives in this single dwelling, pays nothing.
Well, so this is the thing, right, is
Towards that, it pays electricity, yeah, but those they get for free.
it doesn't solve the enforcement mechanism because even if we had another hookup, like if we had another meter on it, whatever it is, technically even if we had another meter, they're not allowed to rent out the house. They are never, regardless of how many meters are on that property, are allowed to rent out that guest house. Because the guest house, the sole use for that guest house is what's defined in 15.270.01. They ever charge money for it, if they ever try to use it as a commercial VRBO, anything like that, it would violate our zoning ordinance. And so while it would help with budget problems in our enterprise funds, it wouldn't technically help in the enforcement regarding renting out the guest house, right?
What is the possibility of when we get these building permits for this ancillary buildings, that we have them as part of their building permit package, sign a document that states that if in fact they do want to rent it out at some future time or whatever, that they have to go through the board to get a conditional use permit?
They can never rent it out. They are never allowed to rent it out as part of the RE or the R1 zoning, because those are single-family dwelling zoned lots. So renting that guest house, it should never be a consideration of why we're passing.
Okay, so I know we're getting really technical here, but to me, a conditional use permit is to allow a business into your home, correct?
What? So I guess my question
a business
is,
of a VRBO, that's considered a business. If you were having a rental property, to me, that's a business as opposed to I mean, it's a fine line, but
right, so I guess we have to separate out renting a property as like a home versus running a business like a VRBO, right? If you rent out the whole lot, say I come in, I'm looking for a place to buy, there's no place to buy, I need a place to rent, and I rent a house that has a guest house on it, then me as the tenant of that lot, and that's why it uses the tenants, principal dwelling or their tenants, I can use that guest house for my ancillary purpose as part of my rent of the whole lot, right? But what I'm saying is that the owner of that land would never be allowed to just rent me out the house and then rent out the guest house behind me. That would violate the zoning ordinance because it would be a single family zoned lot. Does that make sense? Okay.
And wouldn't a separate meter just hypothetically want, like when there's a separate bill coming to that home for that other property, wouldn't that antagonize for people to want to rent it out or do something because it's separate? Like, hypothetically is all I'm saying. There's an extra bill coming in, well, versus it just being onto their normal.
Yeah, and that's why I don't understand why we would require a separate meter for that, because then we're giving off the impression that it's no longer an ancillary use, but right, like it's a separate property at that point, right? So again, I understand why we're thinking about it from a budget sense, why it would kind of make sense. But my question then is, how many people are really going to build guest houses in the city of Caliente? How much money is that really going to make us, right? And even if they were metered separately, we still wouldn't want them to rent that out as like for $500 a month or anything, or $100 a night, because that is not the purpose of the guest house. It's for the tenants, their guests, or people who live with them, right? And so I guess what we've talked about a lot is having an elderly parent live with you. I mean, if an elderly parent lived with me, that was fine. We would put them in the house and we would do it, whatever, which is the same thing of just putting them in a guest house or a seat in the back. It wouldn't change the nature of the person that's living there. And that's the important thing, is the guest house doesn't change the nature of the zone property.
Thank you for clarifying.
Appreciate that.
So would we like anyone,
I'll make a motion, we approve the changes.
I would like to second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I'll change the things that you had talked about, Cheryl.
Items for
That, after we do, does this have a reading into the council and then they change the
Well-
ordinance too? How's that work?
So a couple things have to happen right now. So they'll discuss, so at this point, the city council has not even discussed the
Yes.
possibility of passing this ordinance. This has been something that the genesis was just in this planning commission, right? And so now it's really weird what's gonna happen is the city council will discuss it tomorrow, like, yeah, we wanna add this to our ordinance. What we're gonna do, and I've gotta see how it's worded for the meeting tomorrow, is we wanna look at doing this. And then we have to go through the process of taking it back to a committee to review it. And the committee that they use is usually the planning commission, so you guys will actually have to approve this again. It'll go back up. Well, actually, between the second approval of this committee, we will publish it in the paper, and then we'll have a public hearing on it, and they'll either adopt or reject.
But you mentioned there was another one that needed that process as well, so.
Well, we've already been through the process. This is the conditional use permit for the businesses.
Right.
We've already approved that, and that's already been approved by the city council. So that change has already been made. If they want to go forward with this change, what I will just do after this whole process is done, then just do amended ordinance 179 to be approved just for ease and wording only. We wouldn't have to go through the ordinance process for that, if that makes sense. That was probably as clear as mud. But yes, so there's a process there. It'll take a couple months if they want to go forward with it.
So on that same line item, we also have approve or deny language for possible amendments for the 2018 International Building Code Appendix Q.
I was trying to cover all the bases, so he didn't.
I didn't do anything for the tiny houses. I feel like we've talked about that a lot. That's solely, again, I mean, that's Ken's realm. It has to do with physical building of the buildings. It has nothing to do with zoning or anything like that, whether or not you want to amend any language in there.
My understanding was with all of the process that we had talked about just leaving it alone.
Okay, I like that, actually. I mean,
I make a motion, we don't make a motion.
there you go.
I second that.
My feeling there is that there's a committee of a bunch of great contractors internationally that put this 900-page document together, and there's a reason why they do it that way. So I don't know. I agree in some respects. I don't know the ins and outs of construction and contracting, but I feel that's why those guys get paid that money to do it, so.
So moving forward, items for discussion only, the building inspector report.
I don't have a whole lot so far in the last, well, I have a whole lot that you guys haven't been in on because I haven't had a meeting for so long. Clover Creek Organics, you guys know this already, I know, but they're in the process of building 15 more greenhouses. I have plans, not a full set of plans, but I have plans on a 27,000 square foot drying room, they're calling it, / combination office. 27,000 square feet, hard to wrap your mind around. That's a huge building. They are pouring the slabs for the greenhouses right now. Well, not right now, but they'll be pouring the concrete for them next week. They've got the footings ready to go, the rebar's almost complete, so they're planning on pouring it next week. The other buildings that they're looking at is basically the same square footage, give or take a couple of thousand square feet. But when you're talking about 27,000 square feet versus, 29,000 square feet, that's minor. So they're putting cash out there to do the greenhouses. They've already bought the permit for it. I'll approve it from the port probably tomorrow or Monday.
Any of the
And
other,
as soon as I get the plans on the other one, if everything goes the way it should, I'll approve those for that building to start too. They've already got the building pad built for it. They pulled a separate grading permit for the building pads. But now they have to get a building permit for the slab and the building. We're doing another housing development over here on Haystack Lane for a couple of local people. It's a 1,900 square foot building.
where was that?
Right on Haystack Lane, you know where Steve Coverwall's house is?
Okay.
Just before you get to it. It's on, where the road goes up and then turns back to the east or west. That's gonna be on that area there.
Is that city or county?
It's in the city. Part of those buildings over there are in the county, and part of them are in the city.
Right.
The first three houses that are there now are in the city. Steve Coverwell's
Wells
house
is in the county.
is in the county.
Yeah.
This one will be in the city. And it's about, we're doing an additional, a new house up on Spring Heights. It's probably 85% complete. The HVAC's done. The drywall is almost done. They'll be ready to do the final electrical and the final plumbing on it. It should be complete this month. And the guy will be moving into it. So the only other thing we've got of any consequence is the apartment buildings. There are 30 units over there and remodeling as well, the administrative portion of those two buildings. They're getting restuccoed on the outside. They're getting a new finish outside. They're redoing every one of the apartments. It's kind of going slow because they have to move people out of the apartments to work on them. They're getting the apartments ready to move the people into, and the people that need a 3-bedroom apartment are making do with a 2-bedroom apartment till we get the 3 bedrooms done. You know how that works. So, but they're moving right along, and I expect that they'll be done with that project. Well, they keep telling me by the end of June. If it's done by the end of July, that'll make me happy, because I think it'll take them that long to do it.
What about the industrial park? Anything there?
They're just sitting there twiddling thumbs. They've got 2 vaults started, utility vaults that they started out there. They haven't pulled a permit on them yet. They haven't finished them either. So I don't know what's going on over there for sure.
Is there any movement on the other marijuana facilities down the road?
I'm sorry.
Is there any other movement on those, or are they still?
No, the other marijuana place, they're still talking about it, but I haven't saw any definite plans on it yet. They did go in and finalize their original concept with the grading plan. They've got legal access to Highway 317 down there. That's all done, and they pulled a permit to do that. So that's where we're at.
And the state construction going to Kershaw, it's going well, do you know?
I am not involved in that, but it looks like they're doing good. That's a highway job, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Tommy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I got some information from Carson City last week in regards to the bicycle trail down the canyon. They're gonna have everything completed by the end of May. except all the electricity's gonna be done on the flashing lights on both ends where the crossings are, except they can't get a transformer. The power district is 72 weeks out on getting a transformer. So that might be what the
Yeah.
delay is out of industrial park too, I don't know, I
Yeah.
haven't heard.
Could be. And I've got a little addition to that is that
Thank you.
transformers themselves, when I bought my transformer and built my house up on Indian Ridge, the transformer was $2,000. The going price for the same transformer right now is about $9,000 to $10,000. So that tells you what Tommy's saying about the availability of transformers. So it's gonna be a while before anybody gets any transformers. Unless, well, you got some questions, that's all I've got.
All right, moving forward, we'll go back to public comment related to any matters concerning the city of Caliente. In consideration of others who may wish to provide public comment, please avoid repetition and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Is there any public comment?
My only public comment is we need to have meetings every 2 weeks. When we go 2 months without a meeting, we have ordinances we need to go over. We have everything else like that we need to go over that we've gone over before. Have never finished redoing the ordinance that we started 6 years ago. Whenever I started, I don't know, it's been a long time again. But I always think we have something going on. And also we are supposed to have a meeting sometime about the weed issue, and so we don't have to write nasty letters to everybody, and we haven't come across with that, so we could have a meeting to send it out with the public utility bill, so we don't have to write the letters, and we're gonna get information and have a committee to meet on that, and we haven't done that yet, and that was scheduled last August. And so I'm concerned that we're not doing our job as planning on helping the city move forward.
My suggestion would be we put that back on the agenda.
What, the weeds?
I'm sorry.
The weeds, put that back on the agenda? Or,
Well, we're coming up on weed season again.
Okay, no, I just
Yeah, that's
needed
what you
to
guys-
clarify.
You know,
Was there a specific ordinance you were wanting to address?
No, but we started from the very beginning of a book, and we went through every ordinance. And just like tonight, you say, how easy was that to get that ordinance? It won't be with this ordinance that we just passed, that they have to look at in a different spot. Well, our process was trying to get it so it was easier to read. So when I came in to check on if I wanted to build an extra house on my, a single dwelling house on my property for somebody, that I could find all the information in one spot instead of go through 4 or 5 different places to find that. And that was the goal, and to change wording and everything else, because some of it's been there since '87 or earlier, that we need to look at and redo. That's all.
Franklin, did you ever get an answer out of those people that we paid to do that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, so that happened before I got here. Craig's working on that, is what I'll say, I guess. I'm not gonna talk bad about anyone. It just got dropped. It's been 5 years now, I think, when we started that contract with Sterling Codifiers. Craig's found it. He found the workbook that went along with it. And I know that he's working on it at this point, so.
You're talking about the actual posting it online to where people can
No.
access it through public records?
I think we have and I think we've been updating that with the PDF versions of all the ordinances that we passed. So the last published code that we have was the one that was done like 1995, I think is what it is. And I'll be honest, it is kind of a mess, especially with all the ordinances that have been passed in the past 27 years. And so what Sterling Codifiers was doing is that they were reformatting the way that our code book looks and including all the ordinances that have been passed in the past 27 years and integrating that into one easy defined code system, I guess, right? And so, like I said, I had heard about it when I first got here. I made multiple requests about it that were never responded to. My office actually last summer, we didn't have any digital copies of any of the ordinances or resolutions. So my office, Catch Law, not necessarily the city of Caliente, I spent the money to hire a high schooler to digitize, organize, and provide the city with all the digital copies of the ordinances that could be located, I guess is what I'd say, along with an Excel spreadsheet that explains which each ordinance is. And so now I guess what we have to do is we have to reach back out to Sterling Codifiers, still see if the contract's valid and whether or not they'll still move forward with organizing that codification system, I guess is what I'd say.
Because I think in the long run, we could make everybody, it'd be easier for everybody, people in the office. Us is when we have people come in and talk to us about it. If we have one page, we can pull out, and say, oh, this is section 15, 667, and this one's over on 2654, and this one's on, but that's what's happening, and so that's why we need to look at.
To be honest with you, I don't think we're ever gonna get rid of that,
Right.
because
You'll always
if you ever get the chance to look on the county's website, they use the Sterling Codifiers agenda for their codes, and it's basically still the same way. I mean, you gotta go here and you gotta go there, try to find anything.
The fact of the matter is you always pass new ordinances, and then just every couple of years, you just need to update
Yeah.
your code, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any catch-all way to fix that. It has been 27 years, so I think we do need to do it. But just when we do it this time, City Hall needs to actually do it. And I think we have the right staff in there at this point.
Well, I know we did, we probably spent 4 or 5 years on it.
I'm gonna say something here out of context, and that's not necessarily out of context, but I think that in the last year, we have made some great strides towards accomplishing things. One of them is Franklin.
Yeah.
We've got somebody locally now that kind of and I'm not knocking Franklin, he had a real chore to get done too. But he's at the point now, I think, where he's gonna start digging into this stuff and getting some of it done. We've got Craig, who knows what he's doing. I see daylight at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's rain, so I think there's gonna be a big improvement here in another year.
Yeah, we're almost to China, so we can almost see daylight.
It is working better than I had anticipated, let's put it that way.
One of the only things that, since he brought up the weeds and stuff, would be, we last spoke about the lights that were a concern for me. And then we were gonna get back to, someone was gonna get back and get a report of what was replaced or what wasn't. And so from there, we've been let off, but it's still a rotating light system over at Rose Park. I know we have events and things come in. And it's just something that I always like to put back on there because our streetlights are kind of going. I mean, I have a house next to me that, has a big ditch there and the lighting goes on and off. It's just always been a concern. So it was something that if we could get back to seeing where that is, or where they're at with that kind of thing.
The lights at Market and the one behind my house, any given day doesn't work. About a third of the time, maybe it works. And it's weird, it's intermittent.
Mhm.
It's not just like it doesn't work.
Yeah, possibly, I think, talking with Grant Perkins, I can take down your concern and say, hey, we have a light on this street at this address, but I don't know if that's really the purview of this committee or commission is to take care of the lights. I'm just throwing that out there.
But we discussed it before.
Yeah, and it's been on,
It's been on.
I know those lights have been on the list forever. Mr. Rao?
On the lights, any citizen can give it to the clerks in here of an address of a specific light, so they'll have it on the list. Doesn't have to be from this committee.
Mm-hmm.
And just another thing, I don't know if you've heard that past mayor Victor
Yeah.
Jones passed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, last night.
My condolences.
Thank you, Tommy.
Family.
Is there any other public comment? So at this time, schedule our date and review the agenda topics.
That would be Wednesday, the 18th, if we do it in 2 weeks. At 5 PM, of course. And you wanted the lights on there and
Weeds.
weeds. Gotcha.
Then if there's no other items, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Okay, 1 hour even.